What if your cell phone worked anywhere? Like literally anywhere. The middle of the Pacific, the peak of Mount Everest.
Even the Amazon rainforest.
Yeah. No matter how remote you are, you'd have service. That's what AST SpaceMobile is aiming for.
A space-based cellular broadband network that works with any regular smartphone.
Exactly. No special equipment needed. Today, we're diving into reports and analyses on AST SpaceMobile, trying to see if they can actually make this happen. And later on, we'll touch on a strange obstacle they might face, one that's totally separate from satellites or cell towers or any of that.
It is a pretty wild concept when you think about it.
Totally.
What they're doing is kind of like launching cell towers into space.
Okay, the space cell towers.
Right. They're putting together this constellation of low Earth orbit satellites, and those satellites can communicate directly with smartphones.
So not satellite internet like Starlink or HughesNet where you need a dish.
Nope. Completely different. It's more like they're stretching the reach of cellular service using these satellites.
So they're putting cell towers in space, but how do they actually plan to make money?
Well, they're partnering up with the big mobile network operators, the AT&Ts and Verizons of the world.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, the idea is to offer space-based connectivity as like an add-on to your existing phone plan.
I see. So instead of building their own ground network, they're using the infrastructure that's already there.
Exactly, and that lets them tap into a massive customer base right from the start.
That makes a lot of sense.
And the potential uses go way beyond just giving service to remote areas. Imagine. Perfect in-flight Wi-Fi, solid comms for ships at sea. It could even be a game changer for disaster relief or the military.
Wow, the possibilities are huge.
Ah.
But let's take a step back and look at the people behind this project. What's the leadership like at AST SpaceMobile?
Well, the company is led by Abel Avellan. He has a ton of experience in the satellite world.
Right, he founded and sold another satellite company before this.
Yeah, so he knows this industry inside and out, which is essential in a field as complex as this.
For sure. I noticed Scott Wisniewski, their president and chief strategy officer, comes from a strong investment banking background. I imagine that's helpful when you're trying to raise capital.
Absolutely, you need someone who can navigate the financial world and secure funding, especially for a pre-revenue company like AST SpaceMobile.
Which brings us to a bit of a sticking point, right?
Okay.
Some concerns have been raised about how transparent they are about potential delays and risks.
Right. Some investors feel like they haven't been totally upfront about the challenges they might be facing.
So not completely smooth sailing.
Definitely not.
Which leads us to the financial side. They're not making money yet, are they?
Not yet, no. They're still investing heavily in building out their satellite constellation. And we're not talking about a handful of satellites.
Right. They're aiming for a lot, aren't they?
Yeah, their plan is to produce up to 6 satellites every month at their facilities in Texas.
Wow, that's a lot of satellites.
It is, and it costs a ton of money. They're burning through cash pretty fast, and that brings up questions about whether they can keep this up until they actually start generating revenue.
Yeah, how long can they rely on external funding? And will they need to dilute shares to get it?
Very valid concerns. And even when the revenue starts coming in, will it be enough to justify the massive investments they're making? That's the big question.
That's a question worth billions.
Literally, billions. Some analysts are predicting that AST SpaceMobile could reach billions in revenue by 2030, but that's way down the line and depends on a lot of things going right for them.
So it's a bit of a gamble.
You could say that. There's a lot of potential, but also a lot of risk.
A real high-stakes game.
For sure.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll dive into what the market thinks about all of this.
Sounds good.
It sounds like they're really pushing the limits.
Yeah, they are. But are investors buying into it? I mean, what's the overall market sentiment?
Well, there's definitely a lot of interest in the company.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, who wouldn't want global connectivity?
It's a powerful idea.
And those partnerships with the big telecoms, that definitely gives them some street cred.
Absolutely. It shows they're serious.
You can see that reflected in the stock price, too. It's had some pretty big jumps.
It has, but we talked about those transparency concerns earlier.
Right, about the potential risks and delays.
Do you think that's had an impact on investor confidence?
Maybe to some degree. The stock price has been pretty volatile, some big swings up and down.
True. It can be a bit of a roller coaster.
Remember when SpaceX's Starlink announced their deal with T-Mobile?
Oh, yeah.
AST SpaceMobile's stock took a hit that day?
It did. Shows how sensitive the market is to any perceived risks or competition.
Speaking of competition, let's look at the ownership structure.
Okay, good idea.
Who are the major players holding AST SpaceMobile stock?
Well, institutional investors hold a big chunk of the shares.
Like who? Mutual funds, hedge funds?
Exactly.
It's usually a good sign, right? Those guys do their homework before investing big money.
Yeah, generally it shows they have confidence in the long-term prospects.
That is reassuring. But what about insider holdings? They seem kind of low.
You're right, they are.
Doesn't that suggest a lack of confidence from the people who know the company best?
It can, yeah, but it's not always a red flag. Sometimes insiders have other reasons for selling,
Like what?
personal financial stuff, diversifying their portfolio.
Right, makes sense.
And it's worth noting that some AST SpaceMobile insiders have actually been buying shares recently.
Interesting. So even those in the know have mixed feelings.
It seems that way.
Okay, let's wrap things up with a good old-fashioned SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Lay it all out for us. What are AST SpaceMobile's biggest strengths?
Well, first off, their technology is groundbreaking. They have those key partnerships, and they're the first mover in this space-based cellular market.
Plus, they're using low-band spectrum, right?
Yep, that means wider coverage, better penetration, especially in those remote areas they're targeting.
And they're vertically integrated, controlling a lot of their manufacturing.
Right, which should help keep costs down and ensure quality.
So, strong technology, solid partnerships, first-mover advantage, and cost control. Sounds pretty good.
It does, but they have some weaknesses too.
Like,
Well, they're pre-revenue, right?
yeah, still burning through cash.
Exactly, and relying on external funding, which could lead to shareholder dilution.
And we've already talked about those concerns over communication transparency.
Right, if they don't address that, it could damage investor trust.
So, strengths and weaknesses, both pretty clear. What about opportunities? Where could they go from here?
The demand for global connectivity is only going to grow, so they're in the right market at the right time.
For sure, everyone wants to be connected.
And they could expand into new markets, partner with more mobile operators around the world.
I can also see their tech being really attractive to governments and the military.
Definitely. Lots of potential applications there.
And who knows what other services they might come up with. The possibilities seem endless.
But with great potential come great threats.
Oh, absolutely. What are the biggest threats to AST SpaceMobile's success?
Well, competition is fierce. SpaceX's Starlink is a major player.
Right. They're already way ahead in the satellite internet game.
And there are still technological challenges for AST SpaceMobile, potential delays.
And navigating all the different regulations in different countries.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other headache.
Plus the impact on astronomy with all these satellites going up.
Very true. More and more people are raising concerns about that.
Okay, so lots of potential rewards, but also lots of risks. What's your gut feeling? Do you think they can pull it off?
It's tough to say. It really is. I mean, the vision is exciting and the technology is impressive, but those financial and competitive risks are significant.
It's like watching a high wire act.
Totally. You're rooting for them to make it, but you know there's a chance they could fall.
I like that analogy. It captures the feeling perfectly.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a strange obstacle earlier, something separate from the usual challenges.
Oh, right.
What was that about?
Well, let's imagine AST SpaceMobile overcomes all the hurdles, the funding, the competition, the regulations. They build their constellation. They start connecting the world.
Okay, so far so good.
But there's this other thing out there, something that might seem completely unrelated at first. Space debris.
Space debris, huh? I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
You see, as more and more companies launch satellites, low Earth orbit is getting pretty crowded.
Right, it's like rush hour up there.
Exactly, and that increases the risk of collisions.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
And those collisions can create a cascade effect. One collision can create thousands of pieces of debris, and each piece can cause more collisions.
So it's like a chain reaction creating this cloud of space junk.
Exactly, a space junkyard.
And that could threaten AST SpaceMobile satellites.
Absolutely. If their satellites are constantly at risk of getting hit by debris, it jeopardizes their whole service.
Plus, it raises questions about the long-term sustainability of everything we're doing in space.
Exactly. It's a problem that could affect everyone.
Wow, that's a sobering thought. It really puts things into perspective.
It does, doesn't it? So, as we consider AST SpaceMobile and all these other companies going into space, we need to think about the big picture.
Not just their business plans, but the impact on the space environment.
Right, because what happens up there affects us all down here.
This deep dive has really given us a lot to think about. What are your final thoughts?
Well, AST SpaceMobile is a really interesting case study. They have the potential to change the world, but they face some serious challenges both on the ground and in space.
It'll be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
It will. For everyone listening, what are your predictions for AST SpaceMobile? Do you think they can overcome these obstacles?
Share your thoughts and any stock suggestions in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe to the Stock Analytics AI YouTube channel for more explorations of companies pushing the boundaries of tech and innovation.
Remember, this analysis is based on publicly available information and is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions.
Stay curious.